If Satan gave a sermon, I'm going to dedicate this to a guy named Josh M. and his beautiful song. There's something in Christianity called red letter Christianity. And it's very, very appealing because it sets out to make it all very simple. That if you simply read only the words Jesus spoke, then you're good. If you do that, you can kind of demystify everything. And this has been a case for a long time that there are people who simply look at the red words. There's songs about the red words. And there's people who will go through their Bible. And if they don't have a red word Bible, they'll go through and they'll underline just the words Jesus spoke. And okay, they're great. They're the words of Jesus Christ, the Savior of all mankind. We should focus on those words. Those words matter. And we should also remember something. There's a Bible. There were people around Jesus. Jesus simply could have sat down and wrote down all the things he wanted us to know and passed that on and said, here, just hand this around. He didn't do that. So Jesus took care to surround himself with human beings. And when there's times that there's great confusion, and that confusion is being purposely driven into people's minds, for instance, all these false gospel churches, all sorts of people trying to claim Christ for this or that, in a political world that is trying to make things as confusing as possible. For instance, taking something as simple as this. We have immigration laws. We enforce them or we do not. If you do not enforce laws, you're lawless. If you let people enforce laws sometimes and not others, you set up a circumstance where you actually have kings. What's the hallmark of a king? Indulgences. A king can decide, you know what, let that guy go. I don't feel like enforcing that law today. That's a hallmark of a king. These are some very simple things, and yet the world of politics wants to make these things so complicated. Well, does a president have an authority to deal with immigration? Oh, only sometimes if it's a Democrat. So when the world's been made confusing on purpose, such as racism's not always racism. You know, when racism is directed against white people, that's not racism. That's anti-racism. Or, for instance, when you go out on the streets and you attempt to lock down entire neighborhoods at force, and you're wearing a long gun around you, you have an AR slung around your neck, and you don't let people drive into their neighborhoods, or you shut down their parks, so they're forced to listen to your political speech, that's anti-fascism. It's not fascism. When you're acting upon behalf of great big pharma, and you are telling people to stay the blank home, or we, Antifa, are going to knock your teeth in, that's not fascism, that's anti-fascism. There's all this confusion in the world, and that confusion is being purposely installed. When you have people who are attempting to do everything they can to confuse the gospel, right, that's where red letter becomes really appealing to people. So I started to think about this. What's one way to approach the red letter Christianity that could really drive this home? Well, what if Satan gave a sermon? I think Satan could give a pretty convincing sermon using the red letters because Satan knows what Jesus said. Satan has memorized the Bible 1 billion times over. Only Jesus defeated Satan in regard to the word. When Jesus was in the desert and the devil came to tempt him, the devil kept trying to fool him, to con him into saying things that were not in line with God's will, or doing things that were not in line with God's will, and yet Jesus continued to go back to the word. It is written. So Satan knows the red letters, and I think he could give a very convincing gospel. A woman named Jen has made a very big career out about this. Her name is Jen Hamilton. I'm going to show you what she does here in a second. The reason this came about is my wife showed me a song by a guy who's dedicated a really beautiful song to Jen Hamilton, and how she uses red letters. She's created a huge footprint on social media, and part of that is doing red letter Christianity. So this guy named Josh M. wrote this song. It's utterly beautiful. I love it. I think in some ways Satan would love it. Here's part of the song. It's called I Never Said That. And then in parentheses, red words. I never said hate them. I never said hate them. I never said fight. I never said fight. I said let your light shine. I said your light shine before men. If you do it for power, you've forgotten my face. Whatever you do to the least of these, do to me. So it's a beautiful song. And I'm halfway convinced now it's AI because, again, that voice sounds exactly like an AI voice that a woman from our church used to create a great song. I want to also have that song here. So he dedicated this to Jen Hamilton. So in a second, I'm going to show you what Jen Hamilton does when she does red word Christianity, but prepare yourself for this because then I'm going to attempt to give a sermon the way Satan would, using the words of Jesus, because I'm convinced he could do a pretty good job of this, of being almost Jesus-like. And guess what? Almost getting to heaven means you're actually going to hell. So here's Jen Hamilton. And this is a video that's well staged. She comes out of her bedroom probably. It's at night. It looks like early in the morning. No makeup. She does a very simple thing. She opens the Bible. She begins to read from it. And then she reaches a political conclusion. Pages of the Bible. Here we go.
For I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home. I was
She's showing
naked
pictures
and you
of
gave me
ice,
clothing.
headlines of
I was
ice.
sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me. Then these righteous ones will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? Or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will say, I tell you the truth, when you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you are doing it to me.
Okay, reading for the Bible.
Pretty liberal.
Sounds
I think I want to
pretty liberal. And then she said, wait, I wanted to what? Hold on, Jen, what did you say?
read just one more part of this.
Okay.
Then the king will turn to those on his left and say, away with you, you cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. For I was hungry and you didn't feed me.
So she goes through the inverse and sounds pretty liberal. Now, to Jen, I would say directly this. Did Jesus address groups of people? Did he say you didn't create government programs for me? You didn't pay people to come and see me? You didn't set up prison systems that have activities for me? No, he addressed you. He was talking to you, Jen. He's talking to me, Todd. You did not visit me. Jesus didn't ask us to have it hired done. Jesus told us that we need to do it ourselves. And as the church body, that's exactly what the apostles did. They created the first hospitals, the first universities. One of their first actions was to ask men to humble themselves to feed the Greek widows, a job no man at that time wanted. But Jesus taught them this is what we do, so the apostles carried that out. Jesus showed no interest in government programs at all. So, when we're looking at things like this, with people like this, it's really important that we remember something. Jesus surrounded himself with people. He surrounded himself with a Bible. He had his words recorded for us. He surrounded himself with people who preached and learned to preach from him. The result is the Holy Bible. Now, what if Satan decided to do red letter Christianity? He could do a pretty good job of it. He could do something like this. This is my idea of part of a sermon Satan might give. Jesus taught us. He told us to go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. When Jesus told us this, remember the context that Jesus told us that we need to love our neighbor as ourselves. So as we go out in the world and we make disciples, let's remember something. We're to love people like we love ourselves. So for instance, when's the last time that you sat there just hating yourself? I mean, maybe you feel guilty sometimes, but do you hate yourself or spend a lot of time judging yourself? Do you want other people to judge you? Do you go tell people secrets so they can judge you, or do you understand there's just some things that we just don't speak? Look, we all know people do things. Like, you know that your friends do things privately they don't talk about, and you're not going to go tell them, hey, I need to know your private life, right? You know inside that's wrong. We love our neighbors knowing that they do things at home, in private, that we may not want to know about, but we still love them. That's what we're called to do, to love our neighbors as ourselves. It says so in Mark 12, 30 through 31. So as we're out making disciples, let's remember that. We're not there to dig into people's private lives, even our enemies. I mean, Jesus taught, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. That's Matthew 5, 44. So how can you love a person when you're sitting there hating a whole bunch of stuff about them? I mean, there's things they do you might disagree with, but it's impossible to love a person if you hate all the things they do. So let's keep something in mind, that people do their thing and we do ours, and we're told to make disciples and to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And we're not asking to have people come in and judge our private activities any more than anyone else is asking us to go judge theirs. Let's not have that heart. But let's remember something. Jesus was super clear in Matthew 25, 35 through 40. He said, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. And Jesus was speaking here about the need to take care of the people around us. Remember, he said we should pay taxes. He said this he said that we should pay taxes in Matthew 22, 21. Anyone who's arguing against government programs needs to remember that Jesus himself said we need to pay the tax. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. And remember this, there came a time when Jesus Christ had a problem with some of his friends. We'll get to that. But he had a bigger problem with God. When Jesus was on the cross, he cried out in Matthew 27, 46, my God, why have you forsaken me? God forsook him at that moment. But remember, his friends were there. John was there. The Marys were there. At least Jesus, as he went to his death, he knew his friends were there. And when Jesus came back, where did he find Peter? Out fishing like he always was. Just out fishing. This is in John 21, 15 through 19. They'd finished eating. Jesus had come, seen them fishing, drew them in. He said then to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, Peter said. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my lambs. Again, Jesus said, Simon, son of God, do you love me? He answered, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said, take care of my sheep. The third time that he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him a third time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know I love you. So right there at the end, there's Jesus loving his friends. So remember this. We are to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. We're to make disciples with that in mind, loving, not going and digging into people's private lives, simply loving them. And remember this, you have your friends. Even when God forsakes you, you still have your friends. See, even Satan could do a pretty convincing job of delivering a sermon based just upon the red words.